I will call to order the June 13th meeting of the Board of Supervisors. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right.
Now I can get these on.
Okay, first item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes from our May 9th public hearing and our May 9th regular meeting of the Board of Supervisors.
Motion for both?
Okay,
Second.
all right. I've got two comments, which I think is unusual. Looking through here. One is on page 12. In our middle paragraph, we were talking about what the future should look like. Or I said not to disparage anyone, but he is sure they are multitasking, and he feels constituents deserve their undivided attention during these meetings. I don't know if I said they are multitasking, but I certainly should have said some are multitasking.
Okay.
I didn't mean to imply that every single person that's online is multitasking.
They are multitasking.
Yeah.
You might be right, though.
We're not-
Deb can make that change.
And on the next to last paragraph on there, Supervisor Wilson says he agrees with the idea that you should actually be on camera if you are an elected official. He said he doesn't care what they do as long as they are paying attention enough that they can do their presentation when they need to. I think for that last sentence, you were implying the staff, not the elected officials. Is that?
Wait.
So the next to last paragraph.
Next to last paragraph, I said,
On
yeah, if
top
you're
of
an
page
elected official,
13.
you should be after meetings. What just says if you're an elected official, you should be at the meetings, yes.
Second sentence.
Second, Vice Chairman Harden, so virtually,
No, next paragraph, I'm sorry.
next paragraph, okay.
He said he doesn't care.
Wait a minute. Is yours different than mine?
Page 13, Nigel, top
So
of
we're,
page 13.
yeah, we're back on top of page 13, yeah.
First full paragraph, yep.
Yeah, elected official. Yeah,
It reads to me like you were saying he doesn't care what the elected officials are doing, so long as they are paying attention enough that they can do their presentation. I kind of recalled you saying that about staff, and people making reports, not the elected officials.
I think you're correct. I don't recall exactly, but I'll agree with that.
Well, this is probably what was said, because it records it right off the recording. So what you're doing is clarifying what you said, actually, yeah, okay.
So what do we want to change it to?
He don't want to change, he wants to clarify that.
He doesn't, well, I would suggest that, I'll offer this to Nigel, of course, but he doesn't care what staff do as long as they're paying attention enough that they can do their presentation when they need to.
Okay.
Because it implies that elected officials.
I mean, we should be paying attention the whole time, that if a staff member is up for a certain item, as long as they're on the Zoom, for example, yeah, and they know when they have to do their presentation, that's fine.
So
Okay.
the clarification is he's mid-staff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go, I read the minutes. Anybody else have any comments on the minutes?
Well, should I read them?
No, Frank read them. Okay, good.
Okay.
Nothing else, then all those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Minutes are approved. And now is the time in our meeting for citizen comments. We welcome comments on any item not in the agenda. If the comments are specific to something that is on the agenda, we'd like to wait until that moment in time. So this is an opportunity to speak about anything else that might be on your mind. Yes, please.
Yeah, I have something to say. My name's Crystal Henry, and we have a little problem in Linden Hall right now. So Miss Amy would know about this problem. Rick didn't get to come tonight, I don't believe. Is Rick here? No, he had something prior that he had to go on with. So recently, myself and Carl Lingle got a phone call from our neighbor Rick, and it was because Amy here had blamed Carl for hitting Rick's mailbox and told Rick that Carl had hit Rick's mailbox. First of all, Carl hasn't hit a mailbox in Linden Hall for probably 35 years. It was 1776 Brush Valley Road, or one of the ones near there. He didn't stop at the time, but he did go back and fix the mailbox. All farmers do. We all do. We all stop and go back and fix the mailboxes and tell them, well, we don't personally fix them. We tell them and pay for them. So we got blamed for this mailbox because it was told that she told him that the driver behind the mower saw us and they knew it was us that hit the mailbox. And the problem with that is, first of all, there are other John Deeres that go up and down that road. Second problem is, the next problem is, then that she changed her story when I called her, because then she said that Nate that works for you guys, he's related to Jake, and it couldn't have been Jake because he knows all of our tractors. Well, we have bought and sold tractors since then. So, and I don't know a Jake, or I don't know a Nate, and me and Jake have been together for 7 years. I said, Jake, Nate? And I gave him his last name. He's not related to him. Jake's like, I have no idea who that is. That's Jake and Carl, the same person. I have no idea who that is. He says, I know all his tractors. We have no idea who this person is. So my driver said it's him. Nate said it's not him. All on the same phone call. She just kept changing her story and changing her story. Did you not with me? Then she said, Mr. Haymeister said, what did you tell me Mr. Haymeister said to me? You said, Mr. Haymeister, well, it said Jake drives that road. Maybe it was him. First off, Mr. Haymeister, you should know of all people where Rick's house is, and you know that our lane is 44 stepped off feet from his mailbox. We turn 44 stepped off feet before that mailbox. We never take equipment anywhere past there. I don't even drive my car down that road. I don't go down that road. I very rarely go the front way of our farm down that road. I go all the way down Linden Hall and up through and go to Bullsburg. Ever. So for you to blame a farmer for taking out a mailbox when your mower man did it, and what did I say to you? Get behind him, he's a joke. It's a joke. Everybody that drives equipment knows it's a joke. And then I said to her, he also took out your stop sign. What? Well, we want to know who ruined our property. Your mower man. Your mower man took it out. And I guarantee you if you look at it, but Rick said, I'm going to go take pictures. Then all of a sudden, guess what? The stop sign disappeared. The evidence went missing. The whole stop sign went missing before anybody could get any pictures of it. But that's okay because I have pictures on my cell phone, and if you guys want to look at them, anybody and the cops, I guarantee, can prove what happened there. Because I can tell you the story. And Rick picked his mailbox up, and the mower, I guarantee you what happened is he picked it up, he went to put his boom down, and she said, wouldn't it have been shredded? No, because he went to put his boom down, he knocked the mower over, and then he hit it. And what happened was, you can see it down, I can show you, he hit the dirt, he shoved his mower into the dirt, and it knocked the lid off. His lid is still laying there exactly where he knocked the dirt into the ground. It's over here where he shoved it into the dirt. And where he hit the stop sign, he mowed right over the stop sign, over the whole hole. The grass is this tall. And over here, after he hit it, he stopped, and the grass is this tall. How does the grass get this short over the hole? And it's drugged up. There's a drag mark the whole way, and the grass is way higher, and then all of a sudden, you can tell where they pull it out, and the grass gets short again. Your mower man hit the stop sign. Why would you blame a farmer when you had no idea? That was wrong of you. And I'm sorry, ma'am, but I hope you don't ever get in trouble in Linden Hall and expect a farmer to help you. And that's all I have to say. I hope all of you have a great evening. Good night.
Thank you, Kristen.
Must have been a valuable mailbox.
Do we want to make a statement or let this go?
I think we should let it go.
Yeah.
Okay.
I apologize for making people that
Okay.
upset.
Well, and,
We've had communication with
yeah,
them,
so, yeah, I mean, it's not clear to me that we know what happened. And if someone has proof that someone did it, then they should contact the police. Anybody else have a comment on something that's not on the agenda that they'd like to bring before us? Okay. Next item on our agenda is new agenda items. In the interest of letting people know what's going to happen in the future agenda, the state is asking us to inform everybody of any items that may appear on the agenda that are not currently listed on the agenda. This is so if you're here for something and you leave and then something new comes up, you're not surprised by it and you didn't have a chance to stay and comment on it. So, does anybody have anything we should be adding to the agenda?
I had raised the issue of my leaving the Route 45 getaway group.
Okay,
That occurred a day after the agenda went out, so. And Amy had done some investigation on that? Okay.
okay.
You want to talk about that under your committee report?
Yes, I think so. We'll cover that in our committee
So
report.
that doesn't require a motion, does it?
No.
Okay, we don't have to, we have to have the agenda, okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just have one. I don't know, I think we can discuss it under manager. But we had, Amy and I went to the PML conference, and they had a session on virtual meetings and when they're allowed and when they're not allowed. And it was very enlightening to what we do is fine, but what the center region, I'm thinking we should have a discussion about it, because it may need to go to our committees and that. But I don't, what do you think? Do it during the
You
managers?
can do that, yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Well,
fine.
does it require a motion?
No,
Then we don't have to.
no, we can have a discussion.
Okay. Good. Okay, I'll put that, this down. Okay. Good, okay, that's it for that. Now on to township business. First item of business is the Kaywood North Estate Lots Phase 1 Final Subdivision Plan.
Todd will take that, he's on the Zoom. And
Okay.
I will state for the record at the beginning of this, we forgot to hang up the Kaywood North Estates plan behind you.
Yeah, so I would say if one of the supervisors doesn't meet their plan, wants to hang their copy of the plan on the wall, while I'm reading the agenda item, that would be beneficial to people in the audience like that. On April 26th of this year, staff received from Pentair Engineering the above-referenced plan, which proposes the creation of lots 1 through 4 and lot 14 from the previously approved preliminary subdivision plan as the first development phase for this project. All the lots proposed in this phase front a public street, meaning that no road construction will be required with this phase. All the phase 1 lots will be served by on-lot septic systems. Lots 1 through 4 can be served by public water, and while lot 13 will be served by a private well. On review, the plan is made complete, copies of which were included with the agenda, as well as the plan sheet showing the proposal. Revised copy of the plan was submitted, it was not submitted soon enough for review prior to agenda preparation. Staff believes the comments resulting from the first review can be resolved in a timely fashion. Staff's recommendation is to move to approve the Kaywood North Estates Lots Phase 1 Final Subdivision Plan, contingent upon satisfactory completion of all outstanding comments from the May 9, 2022 letter of the Township Engineer, the May 10, 2022 memo of the Principal Planner, and the May 11, 2022 letter of the zoning.
Okay, can we have a motion to get this started?
Sure.
All right, and a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so, discussion.
Not much to discuss,
Okay,
I got a
Admits-
couple of
Well, it meets all the requirements, but I have to say, that's the strangest development I've seen in a long time. I mean, it meets all the requirements, and I'm sure it's well planned out. Question, I'm gonna vote in favor of, by the way, but is those lots, are they accessed off Linden Hall Road? Where-
There's only one lot access off the Linden Hall Road, and that's lot 14.
It's one at the back.
Say 14, Todd?
Yeah, it's one at the back.
Yes.
Well, there are three that says something about not, I don't know what that means. What does it say?
They're accessed by, what's this name of this road right here? Andrea Way.
Andrea Way, that's the new section of Kaywood.
Okay.
That's right here, they're accessed, to go in here past the cul-de-sac here.
So the other 4 lots are not gonna be built on, or not, they're not gonna be lots, or what are they?
Yeah, they're gonna be built upon, the 3 of those lots, or 2 of those lots are, 2 or 3, are, gonna directly front Andrea Way, and they're small enough that they're gonna be regular, house lots. The other lot that's part of the subdivision is the open space lots in the preliminary plan, if you remember looking at that. It's the big lot that sort of, sits between lot 14 and Andrea Way. It can be accessed by a number of different locations. The person that buys that lot in the future will have to choose which part of Andrea Way or Carla Way or whatever will be used for access to that lot.
But lot 14 will be accessed from Linden Hall Road?
Yeah, right here.
Okay,
That's right.
okay. Okay.
Somewhere close to where the stormwater easement is. What's the width of that stormwater easement on 14, Todd?
Well, I'll have to open my plan to look if somebody has a
50
measurement on their plan there.
50
50, okay. It takes a chunk out of that piece in terms of entry to put a driveway in then too, so.
Yeah. So, Denny, you have anything else?
Yeah, does 14 have a water tank on? Does it? Okay, I didn't, I didn't see, okay. The stormwater proposed easement that runs down to Lot Q, where and how does that stop?
Lot Q is not-
Oh, no, that's a water line easement, okay. That's a water line easement then for city water for Lot Q?
No, I think John Stepp's on the call. I think he can answer that question better than me, but my recollection is that that's an existing water line that goes down there. It has nothing really to do with the subdivision.
I think years ago it was an easement for Comcast cable and city water. 2 or 3 owners ago?
Well, John's on the call, so why don't we let John answer that question?
John, okay.
John, can you hear
John?
us?
Hello, John.
See you, Jay.
You hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, that is a water line easement, for water service to Lot Q.
We'll be providing water to Lot Q.
There is water provided to Lot Q currently. So
Okay,
that easement is over the water line that provides that service.
okay, okay.
That's not covered under this plan.
Okay. Last question. We have a new park over to the far right. How does that fit into our park system? Because it's a 5-acre park.
Are you talking about Kaywood Park?
Well, there's a proposed lot for Harris Township Park.
Oh, that's the land that we're getting, I think. John, correct me if I'm wrong, is that the land that we're getting that's being added onto the back of Kaywood Park? Or Todd?
That's correct, Amy, and that's part of this phase.
Yeah.
Okay. We hadn't talked about having a new park.
No, it's
in the
being added
township, so.
on. Yep.
Okay. Thanks, John.
Right?
Nope, I'm good.
Nigel?
I'm fine.
Okay, we have a motion. Oh, please, thank you.
Come on up.
I think I'm possibly Lot Q. I just wondered what kind of approval the township received from Center County Water Resources, the Mike Philippi and those guys. What happened with that? Because the stormwater that's coming down through Lot 14 has a lot to do with what they had to approve for this. So what did you get as far as approval from them?
Todd or John answer that, and then Jerry, our engineer, is also here, and Jerry could
Yeah, I
perhaps...
see Jerry. I see
Jerry, why don't you
Todd.
come up and have a seat at the table? So So can one of you three gentlemen answer Mrs. Hubbard's question?
I didn't quite get all the questions. So sort of try to repeat what you're talking about.
Center County has a district, resources, I can't remember, conservation district, I think you're part of it. And they were to give approval for this. So it was supposed to go to the state, and the state was supposed to look this over. And I'd just like to know what Harris Township staff have found back from them, and if they haven't, I think this needs to be tabled until you all know what's going on, because this is a very big stormwater management project. And Jerry sits on College Township as an assistant engineer. He sits as your engineer. It affects all of our water. And as I said, I'm not against progress. I'm not against the development, but I want everything to be looked at. And so if nobody has an answer as far as that goes, or some sort of official document, then I think it needs to be tabled. I don't have a problem with it as far as the way it's laid out right now, but that lot 14 has a lot to do with stormwater. And somebody better know what they're doing before they throw a lot of stormwater down into the Cedar Run and into the Spring Creek watershed. So thank you.
Background on how this process works. Kaywood North was originally permitted as with a general earth moving permit. And when Kaywood North Estates proposed this direct discharge to Cedar Run, Center County Conservation District, in cooperation with DEP, said the general permits would not apply. They have to go through the individual permit process. So they rebooted the permitting process. One of the very first steps in that process is called a PINDI, a Pennsylvania Natural Diversity Index search. You look for species of concern, you go through this biological assessment. So at this point, the developers have gone through that process. They have received that individual permit approval, and in the eyes of the county, they've met their burden. So that process has run its course, and I think as a township and as a county, I think people are comfortable with fulfilling that process. John, is there anything else you wanted to add to that?
No, other than we received the permit from both DEP and that we worked with Jerry on the design and review of the stormwater plan and received approval from both the township and DEP. Thank you.
Jerry, can a proposed online well be within the isolation area of an easement, or reverse? Because we have the easement going relatively close to that proposed online well. Is that a conflict, or is that something Conservation or DEP looked at?
When it comes to riparian rights in Pennsylvania, you can drill a well almost anywhere. It's where you site your septic that would matter relative to that well. So
Yeah, the septic, two septics to the far left of that. So
if they drill the well properly and they case the well properly, I would not have concerns.
yeah, we have a good well casing system anyhow. So, okay.
My only concern, as I said before to the board, is that I am the one that has the public water line, and it is there, and I just hope that as you approve this, that you understand that I expect some due diligence from the people who are the developers and the contractors to take good care of it. It costs me a lot of money. I'm not a developer, and it is my own expense. So that is my hope, and so I just want you to remember that across Lot 1, somebody needs to be paying attention, that there's a water line there.
So that water line goes to your lot line?
It does,
So
yes, Danny.
what's called here Q?
Yeah,
part
they
Q.
call it Q, I guess.
Okay,
I did not
okay.
know that. But yes, it does.
So that's not part of this plan that we're approving
But it is
today.
part of the plan,
No.
because Lot 1 my line crosses Lot 1. So my concern is that my line is taken care of. It is on it is on Lot 1. John, is it on Lot 1?
Oh, Lot 1.
Yes, and we put an easement over it so it's protected.
Okay, it's just so the board knows. They always seem to have a difficulty in understanding what's going on here. So I thank you for that, John.
There's additional notes on the plan as well.
It's marked with a W on it.
So your concern is during construction, something would happen to that water line?
Absolutely.
Well, it definitely would be responsibility, yes.
And I think it's,
And to the point, we had this discussion before as to, there was blasting that took place the last time, and it was attributed to roads and infrastructure. Obviously, at this point, you're not supposed to have roads and infrastructure. However, if somebody gets in there and they want to blast for a basement, I would like some due diligence on foundations around there in Kaywood North, as far as my property, my neighbor's property, the farm that's in College Township there. We all should have some sort of site evaluation done before any blasting. I don't care how small it is. I don't care if it's little small explosions or whatever. It's going to affect it because there is a significant limestone formation there that the Geological Service knows about. So that's one thing I'm concerned about.
I think some of the concern in the past, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I know we've talked about this before, is that in the past, I don't know how many people were aware that there was this private water line that ran back there, but now I think having the easements and making sure it's recorded on the plan will give you another layer of protection that you didn't have in the past at that, to your property.
The concept of,
And everybody here has been here a long time on this board, so I realize that memories go, mine has as well, but I just don't want you to forget.
Sure.
Okay, so thank you. Thanks, Drew. What were you going to say, Jerry?
I just wanted to add that blasting is not an arbitrary decision by a contractor. They have to go through Center Region codes for any permits related to that. They establish a blast radius.
All right, then I'm going to say this. If it ends up being approved, then I, as a taxpayer citizen, want to be notified so that the due diligence can be noted by the developer, contractor, landowner before the blasting takes place. But thank you. Thanks, Jerry.
Any further comments from the board?
I'd assume she's protected, I would assume. I mean, if any, that water line's working now, if something happens to it, then it's, yes, okay.
Okay, so I'll call for the question. We have our motion to approve Kaywood North Estate Lots Phase 1 Final Subdivision Plan, contingent upon satisfactory completion of all outstanding comments. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you. Okay, as we let people know earlier, the Hawk Ridge Minor Subdivision Plan has been pulled from the agenda for tonight. Both the board and staff and the developer feel that we're not ready for that at this time.
If you want to make
So-
a motion maybe to table it, you could do that, or you could just withdraw
We
it.
haven't had a motion, so there's nothing to table.
That's fine too.
He withdrew, right?
We asked us to table it, so,
Yeah.
but that's
Well, if
fine.
someone wants to make a motion, we can table the motion.
I motion we table it till some.
No, you're
future
gonna move the motion until so we can table it.
Oh, then you can just withdraw it from me.
Thank you.
date. Okay, thank you, that's better.
I clearly need a refresher on Robert's Rules of Order.
Okay. Proposed ordinance 354, amending the transient retail merchant and soliciting ordinance.
So at last month's meeting, the board reviewed the proposed changes to the transient retail merchant soliciting ordinance. Staff took these changes and incorporated them into a draft ordinance format, and we're asking the board to look at that tonight and let us know if we captured all of your thoughts. We also worked on a revamped application for a transient retail merchant solicitor license. The application format and the wording largely mirrors application forms that we found for municipalities across the state, including College Township, Dairy Township, and Lower Paxton Township. We're proposing the following terms and fees for a license. A one-day license would be $15, 30 days would be $25, 6 months would be $50, and 12 months would be $100. The annual license would be eligible for renewal for a $10 fee, and the fees would apply to both solicitors and transient retail merchants. We did ask the solicitor about the charging a different rate for residents and non-residents. He said there are some constitutional problems when we treat people differently based on residency, which makes implementing such a fee structure difficult. And I will say that when we looked at our fees, we looked at what similar municipalities are charging, and I put them in the agenda item, but College Township, their temporary business is $50 for the first week or any part thereof, $30 for each additional consecutive week, and then they have charges for mobile food vendors. Ferguson Township, their transient business is $50 per day, $250 per week, $500 per month, and $1,000 per year. State College is $75 per day, $300 per week, and $600 per month for their temporary business. And in Patton Township, they get more of the solicitor business, so they do $20 per year for solicitors. Their temporary business, if they do it, the township manager told me they would charge the staff time that's needed to review the permit. So we think that we're close to being ready to put this forward in an ordinance and get the ordinance adopted. We'd like to have your comments. I know Claire is here as well. She's been very helpful through this entire process. And, you know, certainly we can discuss anything that you guys want to discuss at this point.
We certainly don't want to be as high as College of Ferguson in the borough. Would you mind starting off?
Sure. Well, hi, Claire Lortz. Last time it was half of the cost that we discussed last month. So 50 for the annual, 25 6-month, 15 for 1 month, 10 for 1 day. So that's like a double amount from what we talked about last time. And artists have never heard of this before, and they have never had to pay something like this. I'm not sure why, since it seems like other townships have this ordinance. State, like for Arts Fest, I don't think artists have to pay this fee unless they're incorporating it into the booth fee. They have a separate district for Arts Fest in the borough of State College with separate regulations.
Well, they found a way around it.
Yeah, I mean, even artists who do shows in Ferguson Township and like over in Port Matilda, and so it's just going to be a shocker to them, and it will discourage artists from going to events, and it will discourage businesses from doing events, and we want businesses to feel free to do events. So I really would encourage the supervisors in the township to reduce the prices back to what we talked about. And if it's a $10 renewal fee for the annual or $5, fine. I understand there's paperwork involved, and I respect that. But I really would push for what we had discussed last month. So, and we just kind of for everyone's education, when we looked at the fees, we were trying to recoup some of the cost for Todd's time. That's why it's a little bit higher than it was. We also tried to look at what others were doing around us, since people are typically going to do. Now, I don't think in College Township College Township indicated they don't have many special events. They have some farmers markets and things, and that's where these would come into play. Same with Patton Township. The borough certainly is different because they have, like I said, a special district for Arts Fest and special regulations for that, and they have other events. But looking around, we were trying to see what others are doing so that we could be, you know, comparable to what we're doing with our size and things. And then also we're still trying to recoup some of our costs, so that if someone says, well, how did you come up with this fee, and then your zoning permit fee is additional money, or your other fee is additional money. So trying to be somewhere in that spectrum. We're certainly, whatever the board wants to do, we're not married to it. We'd like to get this, I think we're very close to being done with this ordinance, and we'd like to get it across the finish line. Frank, last time you mentioned that perhaps there could be some kind of discount for local residents who would like to get a permit, at least for the annual option. Is that something that you'd still be willing to consider? The solicitor told us we constitutionally can't do that, because you can't discriminate based on the fact that someone lives in a township or doesn't live in the township. Okay. So he said it's very problematic for us to do that. Okay.
And your concern that is the day 15, month 25, 6 months 50, annual 100, is that the number you're talking about?
Yeah, that is
Okay.
new as of this month.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I wanted to make sure that I was
Yeah.
looking for the same thing.
Anybody else have any thoughts?
I just have one here. I want to make sure, and I think, if I'm reading it, I think it's, every applicant must submit a copy of their state-issued driver's license or identity card with their application, and up here we allow Vmail. Now, you're going to allow that identity card to be scanned and emailed? Okay, I just want to make sure of that.
I had a question sort of related to the top sentence there. Application can be remitted via. How is feedback given on that? No application will be processed until all recorded information, including payment, is received. Does Todd If there's something absent, is it Todd's responsibility to seek that out?
Yeah, Todd receives the application, and Todd's on the call, but Todd receives the application, and if something is missing, he contacts the applicant to find out what is missing. And we talked, and I don't think we have 100% agreement on either side, but the way we do tax certifications now in the office is slightly different than how he handles people that apply for permits. And some of them do send in their applications, but if someone calls us and they need a tax certification, we allow them to send us a copy of the $10 check, and then they have to put it in the mail, and we'll process the tax certification while we're waiting for the $10 check to arrive. He doesn't do that with his permits, which I understand because his permits are a lot more work, but we had talked about that, like, because we can't, the township isn't gonna sign up for PayPal or Venmo because there are fees associated with that, and we don't necessarily wanna pass those fees on. But we were trying to come up with a way that, you know, if you drop the check in the mail, the post office isn't always the most reliable. How do we know we're gonna get the check in the mail? Or, you know, if someone's local and they can just drop it through the Dropbox at night. But we were trying to talk about that a little bit internally in the office as well, because we do want to allow people to email the applications to us, so they don't have to physically come here.
What's the feedback loop then, Todd, in terms of, should you need to get back to an applicant, what kind of advance notice are we talking about before the event? I mean, we could end up getting ourselves in a squeezed point, couldn't we, without some kind of a specificity there?
Yeah, I don't think from the municipal perspective, we're ever going to be in a squeeze because, I mean, we're trying to implement the 5 business day rule for submitting
Okay.
submitting the applications for the licenses. If all the information isn't provided, and the fee isn't provided, and we're not physically able to issue the license within that 5 days, and the event's at the end of that 5 days, they won't be getting a license before the event. It's no different than with the board's policy for subdivision and land development plans. We ask that they be submitted at least 15 business days prior to the meeting that they go to first. If for some reason the subdivision or land development plan isn't in sufficient shape to be on that agenda, it doesn't get placed on that agenda. So, as with zoning permit applications, as with subdivision and land development applications, we'll always encourage people to submit their applications as soon as possible, in as much advance of the event as possible, in case they don't have all the information, so that every effort can be made to get the licenses issued before the events, but obviously we can't control that.
Is 15 days reasonable for a vendor that's coming to a show? Does it fit into your sort of scheme of things?
Yeah,
Okay.
some applications to shows are like over a year in advance.
but in
so
terms of-
15 days is reasonable.
Okay.
Yeah, and if there is a pop-up event, then I guess the expectation is that somebody would have to have like a 6-month or annual. And honestly, most locals who do a lot of shows in the township will get the annual anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
enough.
You ready?
Yeah.
Well, I want to tell these vendors, we're from the government, we're here to help. Right? This is, I believe we need a peddler's ordinance. If someone's coming to your front door, knocking on your door, or walking down the street, peddler's ordinance is simply applicable. Or if someone sets a stand up, boom, right there it is in the street, that's probably a good thing. But by asking these artisans to do all this is ridiculous. There's 16 steps you have to go through on this application. Everybody that works for you has to do all this. Okay, let me give you an example. If you have a booth of 3 people, one of the questions are, do you have a previous criminal record, yes or no? If yes, list the offense and penalties. List the number of employees that says this. Each one must be there. And it goes on, and you're also subjecting yourself to state police background check and fingerprinting. Now, I don't know all of a sudden, but if you're an artisan or a vendor, you can go down to the military museum. You're okay. You don't have to do there because it's a museum. If you go to something like Our Day and Time, it's okay. But all of a sudden, if you go to the winery, you are considered now a criminal. You have to do a background check, and you're the same person. So I think that is a little bit too much. And I understand, I agree, we'll have a permit. We have to have our money. and we have to have our piece of silver, there's no doubt about it. Everybody gets paid so much money down the line, and everybody's happy. So we'll be happy to get a fee, pay a fee from you, you get a thing. But I believe it simply should be responsibility of the person who's holding this event. If it's at the winery, whoever it is, let them take a list of who's at this event. Let them do this and say, okay, these people are on our event. If anything happens, we can go to the sponsor of the event. They can say, this person was here, this person was there, and let them be responsible. Now, I'm sure these vendors will do what they need to do because it's a business. But it certainly is any business. If you're in business, it is another obstruction for doing business, and I'm not in favor of that. Now, what I would say is also, we're concerned about our police powers. What happens if we go to use our credit card at this booth and they put a erroneous charge in there? That we have nothing to do with that. They'll know instantly. Every place you go, you have that possibility of having your card hit. Just because it's a vendor doesn't mean it's any more responsible than any place else. And it can be tracked. They'll know right away. You'll get notified if your car is being compromised. We don't have to provide that information to the police. The police don't come to us and say, who are these people? We want to know who they are. They don't do that. They don't need to. It's identity theft. I don't get that either. But that is not an option that we would have to worry about when these people, our vendors, come to town. So I would like to see two separate rules. I think this rule for peddlers around your house, not a bad rule, not a bad idea. But for vendors that go to these places, pay a fee. If we want to get money from them, pay a fee. Let's do it. I guess that's a normal thing to do. But when you have 16 different things and you have some kids working for you, or maybe your brother-in-law wants to help a little bit, have you ever been arrested? What's your criminal record? Are you liable to get state police if we require a background check? And I understand why it takes 15 days to do all that. It probably does, but I don't. I just believe that's more than we need to do. So I'm opposed that we have two separate blanks, one for peddlers and one for artisans. So I don't know where that's going to go. That's my statement. Okay, and I've talked to some of these other, they don't do this anyplace else. They are not asked. Now, rarely they may have to put some name and application in, but I don't know where the state college borough says they don't do it. They're vendors.
No, their application I have right here, and it asks those
Every
questions.
vendor in the People's Choice has to submit that.
Arts
They
Festival?
don't.
I don't know, but I have
They
their
don't.
application, I
I'm
have
just telling you,
College
they don't do
Township's
it.
application, it's the same language.
Well, what she says, they have made a special request for that, right? Exempt them.
Yeah. I've
Yeah,
never
there's
heard of
nobody does it. So that's my speech. I don't know where it's going to go. I just think it is invasive. So there you go.
Michael? Bob?
I mean, so you did some calculations on $100. I thought we were talking about, we weren't talking about 50 last month, I don't think.
We talked about 50 last month, and I was looking at comparable fees, and I looked at Dallastown, which is in York County, it's a borough. They have a similar license in terms of the lengths that we have, and so I looked at their fees, and I tried to base a little bit off of theirs, a little bit off of what, I mean, most of these are not recouping even part of Todd's time. The 6 months would recoup some of his time, and the annual would recoup his time. But we're just trying to look at recouping costs. Again, we're open. If you want to change those fees, I don't have a problem with that. It's a starting point for discussion.
In terms of a 6 month and an annual permit, is there an increased burden on us to go from 6 months to annual?
Other than we're just going to have to track, the annual because it can be renewed. But that's a spreadsheet that Deb set up, similar to what we do for tax verifications.
Well, the renewal, I'm sorry.
I'm just going to throw out there here that we toss out the 6 months and just 1 day, 30 days, or a year. And people who are regulars would go for a year because next year it's going to cost you $10 for the year.
That's reasonable.
You say 1 day, 3 days?
1 day, 30 days, a year.
Okay.
I don't see any point in the 6 months. If you're going to be long-term, you might as well be,
Yeah, the
Cover
30
the
days
entire-
is important because there are shows that are 4 days,
yeah.
If that's the case, and all locals would probably do the annual option, and since there's a renewal fee, would you please consider lowering the price from $100 to at least like somewhere 50, 60, 70.
I was gonna.
Lower than
I was gonna
100.
propose splitting the difference at 75.
That sounds good to me, that's kind of where I was going.
The renewal was
Thank you.
10.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
we're talking about the initial fee.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we're good with
You say annual 75?
So I'm
Yeah,
gonna,
just make an annual 75 and no 6-month one.
I'm gonna propose that we have 1 day at 15, 30 days at 25, and annual at 75, with a renewal fee of 10.
Renewal stays the same.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think it makes sense to have 6-month either, especially because it might get confusing if somebody's doing a spring show and then wants to do a Christmas show. Sure.
6
Yeah.
months is sort of
Yeah.
the splitting of the seasons, isn't it, between those that would do
Yeah.
winter events,
Yeah.
then you get into July, and then you're doing major events. So the 75
Less
makes more
confusion.
sense.
Yeah,
That's
well, I
good.
think the annual fee with the renewal kind of addresses Frank's idea of, treating our resident exhibitors and artisans fairly, because you're gonna come back next year for $10. And so we're kind of giving people that are constantly here.
I think that would work.
Well, I'll make an attempt at forming a motion. I move that we have a peddler's ordinance and we have a separate ordinance for artisans and vendors.
Well, if that's the case, but we could move with this document and then do a peddler separate. Is that what you're saying?
This would be the peddler's ordinance, yes. This is our peddler's ordinance, basically. And then move on to formulate another separate permit that isn't quite as erroneous, whatever you want to call it, for vendors. That if you're having, I don't know what I would say, my thought, you would have whoever's sponsoring it would be responsible for the people that they bring in. And they keep track of those people. If I know we're insist on getting money from these people, so they can send us some money or whatever they want to do, but I just don't quite get that part of it.
What do you see as the difference between those two documents?
I see that peddler's ordinance is what this is. This is what it started out as, and this is what we've had it for years, up until this year. We've had 30 years of vendors that I know of coming into the Center Region, into State College, into Bowlesburg, and we've never had problems with them. We've never asked anything of them. Now we're going to ask them to give us some money, which I understand that. But I don't think that it should be the same as a peddler's ordinance, that we're worried about people coming to our front door. And to have a little less, instead of 18 questions, maybe have a questionnaire that has to be filled out by the owner, whoever runs the event.
Well, I can agree with that, but I think we're dealing with two separate documents.
It would be two separate documents, yes.
This for the artist, and a new one for peddlers.
No, this for the peddlers and this for the artists. This is peddlers.
Todd would like to say something, he's gonna administer.
Please.
I'd like to correct something that Bud said. This ordinance has been in effect since 1979. Door-to-door salesmen and vendors, regardless of whether they're artisans or food truck people or whatever they sell, they've all had to follow the same regulation. It's not true that if you're not a door-to-door salesman, that you've not had to do anything. Because I've issued transit retail merchant licenses the whole time I've worked here. It is true that in the last few years, probably because of the pandemic, there have been more events and there are more businesses in Harris Township that require that type of licensing. It is also true, and I think Frank mentioned this 2 or 3 meetings ago, that the people on Memorial Day and the people that have been doing events in the township through the years, with the exception of those that occurred on state property at the military museum, probably should have been getting these licenses all along, but a long time ago, the Board of Supervisors decided that, what happens on Memorial Day happens on Memorial Day, and they didn't want to regulate anything there. So I don't think we're asking anybody to do anything different now than what we've asked them since 1979. What we're doing with this proposed ordinance amendment is streamlining the process, making it simpler, making it more user-friendly. So I think, you know, to be honest, we need to stop talking just about artisans when we're talking about anything that's not a door-to-door salesman, because there are lots of people who have to get the transit retail merchant license that aren't artisans.
Is a food truck a vendor or a peddler?
A food truck is in a stationary location, so it is a vendor. It is someone that has to get a transit retail merchant license.
A peddler then
Never
is the
done it.
person that
We've
knocks
never
on your
done it.
door?
A peddler is someone that goes door to door, yes.
Okay, go ahead, Frank.
My turn, okay. I have to, okay, this is an ordinance that's already existing. That's my first thing. And Bud's bringing up some very good points that we should look at. I'm torn, because let's say, I'm kind of thinking that as the Memorial Day, for example, if we have some events like that, the people that are running Memorial Day should be able to get one thing and give a list of the vendors. Instead of having every vendor coming from everywhere, I would be in favor of that. But that's not what this ordinance is about, okay? The problem I have with doing that is, let's take our speaker here. She gets an annual permit, and she's attending all the things. Now all of a sudden she comes from Memorial Day, and all these people come in that didn't have to pay. So is that fair to her? So I think we've got to look at going forward. I think we can pass what this is to upgrade it, to make it easier, because right now we have people coming into the township office to do them. They have to hand them over. You have to get notarized. This simplifies that. Let's get this going so everything's simplified. Then if we want to take a look at this ordinance further to split it into peddlers and transit merchant and have two separate situations, that's something for.
That's my motion.
Yeah, but that's another thing. This
That's
one
my
here.
motion.
Okay.
I know that's your motion. You don't have a second either.
Well, I don't, I probably won't get it either.
But my point is, let's get this thing updated so that we can do things in a modern way, and then take a look at it and say, okay, how do we separate this to make it fair for artisans or people that maybe not are trying to peddle, or they're showing their wares, whatever they've done. So I think we have two separate items here, and that's where we're going here. We seem to be talking about two separate things. I think we can get this ordinance done, get it modernized, and then also just not take it off the table, but let's keep discussing it and get something for artisans and the Memorial Day, different types of events that we can classify differently, and whether they have to do this ordinance or don't have to. That's a lot simpler, yes.
So my suggestion would be, and I appreciate your comments, Frank, my suggestion would be we have a special events ordinance, and we could look at the special events ordinance and look at perhaps, because I think what we're talking about right now, the artisans are largely going to special events. They're going to the day in town, which Todd is right. We've always treated the day in town a little differently. And again, that predates Todd and myself. But look at the special events ordinance and see if there's something we could do within that. And I think that might be how some of the other municipalities do these larger events, and we can certainly look at that. But I think Frank is also right in that we do need to modernize our regulations, because right now, they're not.
Okay.
Okay,
I have a question I see Tussie Mountain, when they have their festivals out there, do every one of their vendors come up and get an application, submit a background check?
Todd?
I didn't hear the first part.
Well, the question was, in an example, Tussie Mountain has a lot of activities going up there, and they have vendors. Do all those vendors come in and get a background check?
They haven't until now. The organizers of the event, which is usually Tussie Mountain, historically registers all those things as special events. But that's another one of those venues that we're trying to capture with this ordinance.
So, but then we've had no problems with the way that has been working in the past, if I understand.
Well, I understand from working here that we've had issues in the past.
And how do we handle that?
Parking problems, with noise problems, with.
That's a separate issue now.
Well, that's all part of the same thing, because particularly if we're talking about combining the special events ordinance with the ordinance that you're talking about. So, the police powers that we keep talking about are not investigating credit card theft or identity theft or anything like that. The police powers we're talking about are the responsibilities placed on municipalities by the state to enact reasonable regulations that protect the health, safety, and welfare of residents and visitors. By requiring this information before these people show up and conduct business in Harris Township, those are the police powers that are granted to the township. So if you choose not to do those, my opinion is you're not living up to your responsibility that's put on you by the state.
I disagree. We are living out responsibility. We handle that very well, and Tussie has done everything they can to help us out and bend backwards. So I don't see that as the equivalent to a vendor's license or artisan's license.
Okay, let me try to move this along if I may. So we have one ordinance here in front of us, and we're not going to write another ordinance. We may amend this ordinance. But if I'm understanding your motion, it is that this ordinance only apply to peddlers.
I will amend my motion that this ordinance apply to peddlers, yes. Yes.
Okay? Which would leave just to be clear, that would leave then vendors under our existing ordinance for the moment.
No, they're the
I
same.
guess it would have to be unless we.
No. We would need two ordinances then, because it's
Right.
the same
I
ordinance
don't have a
now.
problem with two.
Okay.
I'm suggesting eventually do ordinance, yes. Yes.
So you'd have to create a standalone ordinance now for peddlers.
Peddlers, that's what we're saying.
This is just
Okay.
amending the existing ordinance now.
Well, we don't have to do it tonight, but we can do that. We can act on that at a later date.
Can I ask a question, Bud? And I truly don't know the answer to this question, so that's why I'm asking.
I probably don't either.
On the application, I think your problem is less with the regulation and more with the application and asking for vendors to put information about if you've been convicted of a crime and other things. Is that correct?
There's two phases to that. That's part of it. That is part of it.
So if we created a separate, I don't have a problem if we created a separate application or a section of the application for peddlers to fill out that perhaps is more detailed. I did see that in some of the ones I looked at, because peddlers are coming to your house, right?
I don't have a problem with that. That's not my issue. We do need protection to our citizens for that, yes.
Let me ask a question. Is the application part of this ordinance?
No, separate.
Okay, so we can talk about, we can work on the application at a later time. We are voting right now on the first 3 pages.
Which is the amendment to our current document.
All right, I'd have to think about that, but that's getting closer. That's getting closer.
Okay, so ordinance number 354, referring to the first 3 pages. I have not heard a second to Bud's thoughts on this. I'm not trying to shut you down.
Thoughts.
Okay, you
There's thoughts
understand.
made in the form of a motion, but we need to do something, and I think we're being very, I don't know.
Okay, well, we can talk about the application forms at another time. Can I have someone make a motion on ordinance 354?
Do we have to have a public hearing on this?
We do, but, Bruce, can I make a point of clarification?
Yep.
In the ordinance, we have a term for licensed term, and we have 1 day, 1 calendar month, 6 months, or 12 months. Do you want to delete 6 calendar months?
That's, okay, I'll make the motion. I move that we pass ordinance 354 with as provided here, or with the change of going from $15 for 1 day, $30, $25 for 30 days, and $75 annual.
Second.
And then that, okay, we can, that's for peddlers now.
Here, let me
That's
see
for
this.
peddlers. I understand what you're saying. But, well, I'm still a little concerned because we're still putting,
We're talking about the fee in the application process. We're not
Right,
talking
but
about what has to be
But
on
that
the
means
form.
every vendor still has to go through the same application
We're not talking
process.
about the application right now.
But-
If I'm hearing what Bruce is saying, we're talking about the ordinance and sending the ordinance for public hearing. The application, we could actually create 2 different sections, I have no problem with that, on the application. One for the peddlers that is more onerous, I think is the word you've
I
been
was trying to think
using.
of that.
Yeah, onerous than perhaps for the solicitors. And I think we have, I mean, I've been doing some research, I think we have some applications that would lead us in that direction.
Well, okay, so that means that every vendor still have to go through the township?
They still
Regardless?
would have to go through the township,
Well, you
yes.
see, that's,
They already have
That's
to
the
go
way-
through the
well, they're
township,
supposed to,
though.
they don't, we have not done that in 30 years, I don't care what you say. Even though Todd says it's required,
We have.
we haven't enforced it in 30 lousy years, I know we
They
haven't.
haven't been enforced, but it's on the
I
books.
know that, all of a
So,
sudden, right.
we're just
So now's the
amending
time to
what's
straighten it
on the
out,
books.
yes. Now's the time to straighten that out, yes, I agree. Well, it's a motion second, go ahead.
Before I call for the vote, how are we doing?
Thank you.
Okay. We're trying.
No, thank you on behalf of vendors and businesses who are going to do events and shows and festivals in the future in the township.
Yeah, it shows.
This is
it's
a
just-
positive change.
To me, it's
easier.
ridiculous to put that much burden on people trying to have shows and festivals.
Okay, well,
Yes.
we're, obviously, we're not done with this, but can I have a motion on, I'm not a
You
motion,
have
can I have a vote on ordinance number 354 with the revised fee schedule?
To extend the public hearing.
Public hearing, yes.
Before it's sent to a public hearing, yes. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
I say no, yeah.
Okay, 4-1. Thank you.
But I do appreciate your comments. I do think there is a huge distinction between them. I think that in the future, this is a positive change for the existing ordinance. And I think a lot of people will be happy with the changes. I do think that if there is a separation in the future, one of the problems with making a business responsible for the event, and having an application for a business that wants to do a festival, is that there are different sides. So like if I want to do a pop-up versus University Wine Company doing a huge event, there probably is going to be a flat fee. It will almost make it impossible for me to organize a pop-up with like 3 businesses because I probably won't be able to afford that fee for that permit. So I'm not really sure. That's just something to think about. I'm not really sure how that will work out if
I'm not
there's
sure
separate.
either, but it isn't good the way it is.
Well, I think, so we're not done yet, but we're gonna be
I
looking
understand.
in the future at
Special
our
ones.
application forms for peddlers, application forms for vendors, transient businesses being perhaps distinct, and we're gonna look at special events and
This
put
is
some
a
more,
good step
put some
right
more
now.
thought into it.
Yeah,
Okay, thank
Thank
you,
you.
everybody.
Keep coming back, though.
we'll do.
Okay,
Okay. You thought that mailbox thing was gonna be tough.
no, that was easy. I thought Hawk Ridge was gonna be tough.
No, that's easy. It's gone.
Okay, next item up is the Bowl Avenue needs study.
Okay, I'm gonna introduce this, then I'm gonna attempt to share my screen so you can see the map, and I failed miserably at this for some reason, I blame my age. Okay, and Rob Watts is here and Jim Saylor are here, so they can answer questions that you have. So at the February meeting, the board discussed creating a needs study for the Bowl Avenue corridor. The study would prepare project scopes, concept sketches, cost estimates, and construction schedules that can then be used by the township to apply for grant funding, MPO funding, and in capital planning. So after that meeting, we sent a survey with 16 possible projects to the board, fire company, and our various township ABC members to help identify a possible scope of work. So we came up with the 6 highest ranked projects, and I'll pull up a map here in a minute that Rob can go over, and I won't read you all the projects, but he can explain it. They're basically grouped around some pedestrian safety issues. There's a lot at Warner Boulevard and Bowl Avenue. There's some stuff at the at the Pennsylvania Military Museum, and there's some signal work. And Nigel's favorite project, the turn lane at the Bullsburg Pike, is on there.
There was another accident because of that, just 2 weeks ago.
Okay, and then we also identified a 7th project after there was a fatal accident, pedestrian accident in March, and that was to install an enhanced crossing with rapid flashing beacons, overhead lighting, and crossing-specific signage and pavement markings at Old Bullsburg Road and the entrance to the Military Museum. So myself, Rob, and Jim met with PennDOT officials to discuss the safety concerns at Old Bullsburg Road and the Military Museum intersection. And during that meeting, they noted that the township is permitted to add a crosswalk without their approval. The speeds were also discussed along the stretch of Bowl Avenue, and PennDOT encouraged us, and I've never had PennDOT actually do this to me, but they actually encouraged us to submit a request to do a speed study to see if the speed limit could be reduced from 40 miles an hour to 35 miles an hour through that stretch of Bowl Avenue. And Jim also noted that there's a new round of ARLI grants that opened June 1st. ARLI, which stands for Automated Red Light Enforcement, funds transportation enhancements, including pedestrian crossings. We were encouraged to consider submitting a grant application for these improvements at this intersection. The grant would cover the cost of the project plus engineering fees, and there is no match, so we wouldn't have to provide local monies to get this project possibly done. So, as I said, Rob is going to go over, I'm going to pull up the map here in a second. Rob's going to go over the proposed projects and the scope. The cost to prepare the needs study for the entire corridor is $63,740, which includes the cost to summarize project needs and to prepare a concept design, cost estimates, and construction timeline for the 7 projects identified. And there are approximately $8,308 of that would be associated with the ARLI application. So I did talk to PennDOT, and we can use our liquid fuels allocation to pay for the needs study, since that's technically an engineering study on a roadway, so that's fine with them. So tonight the board's being asked to do a few things: review the draft scope of work for the needs study and the cost estimate and come to agreement on that. Discuss if you support submitting the ARLI grant submission for the pedestrian crossing at Old Bollesburg Road and the Pennsylvania Military Museum entrance, and we have to move on that quickly because the deadline is June 30th. And then authorize staff to send a letter to PennDOT requesting a speed study on the Bowl Avenue corridor, and we'll just do the whole length from Warner Boulevard to Discovery Drive. So I'm gonna pull up this map, and hopefully this works.
Wow. Is that the one? We got it up.
Yeah, let me see if I can share my screen so that people in Zoom land can see. Oh, what am I doing? Oh, here. This is actually one.
Amy, that was such a good introduction. I should probably just ask for questions and be ready to go home.
I actually shared my screen too. It's a good night.
Very good. You could even zoom in if you want to now. Tempted.
I mean, now you're asking a lot.
Okay, all right.
All right, hold on. Okay, there we go.
All right, zoom in on the actual areas of concern. Well, if you recall, a couple months ago, we had a larger map with 16 different projects, and through the survey that you all took, we pared that down to 7. And they really cover 3 locations, and they kind of concentrate in those 3 locations. The numbers actually represent their priority in which they came out of the survey. So number 1 project was turn lanes at PA Military Museum and Old Bollesburg Road. Project 2 were turn lanes at Church Street and Bollesburg Pike.
Old Bollesburg Road. Oh, okay.
Number 3 and 4 were up at the Warner Boulevard, Shingletown Road intersection. Number 3 was to add the pedestrian accommodations across Bowl Avenue. There are none there now. And then number 4 was to lengthen the left turn lane on the westbound approach there. It's sort of bounded by that island. 5 was to improve the bike crossing at the PA Military Museum, and then 6 we brought in sort of toward the end was the enhanced pedestrian crossing there. And then 7 we brought in because the turn lanes, if we are going to do any sort of turn lanes or widening without doing a road diet in that location, you're going to get into signal poles. You're going to have to move them anyway. So we brought in the idea of the traffic signal replacement project as well as a good sort of pairing with the left turn lane project. We took this guidance, we prepared a scope of work and a cost estimate for preparing the conceptual. We'd be preparing basically a conceptual design for you. It's kind of a 25% design, about a quarter of what a real design would take, because we don't have survey at this point. We can't really do it to complete PennDOT specs because we just don't have details that we would need for that kind of work. But what we're able to do with that is get a much better cost estimate so that when you apply for a grant, you're not risking your own money in the process and coming up short at the end. You have a construction timeline and maybe a little bit better feel for what it's going to take to get certain materials, especially with the backlog, as you know, with mast arms and poles and things like that these days. And then we also look so we don't miss items that we would otherwise miss if we didn't look at it in detail. checking out where there's stormwater. Are we getting into utilities? Are there question marks that we need to increase contingencies for and things like that? So the goal here is to give you and your staff a lot of good material so that they don't have to spend their time rooting through and digging through the transportation research. They can take this, the needs memo, and go right to these grant applications. Hopefully it saves you time. And if it saves Amy time, that makes her happy, and she can do other things that suit her talents a bit better. That's sort of the goal and the scope and the proposal we've given to you. Take any questions as to the next step here. Really, it's the township, the township's role in this. Once you get a grant, like an Arley grant, it pays for all the engineering, all of the construction from there going forward, and your cost for an Arley grant is zero. Other grant programs have a match, but Arley does not. Your contribution to it is this needs study to develop the projects, get good estimates so that you can accurately fill out these applications when those windows open. And we are committed. In fact, I just saw the first draft of the enhanced crossing. So we're going to have a concept estimate and all the materials ready to go in for the Arley grant. We've even arranged a traffic count. We're going to try to get information there about how many pedestrians actually do use that crossing and how intensive that area is for bikes and pedestrians. We think that'll speak well when it goes to competing with other projects. And of course, the crash information with the fatality is going to, unfortunately, have a lot to say about attracting, votes or attention to that particular proposal.
I see number 3 as being pretty simple.
I think
At intersection crossing, which is basically painting a crossing on the road that's there now.
it would be painting the crossing, but then you do have to add the signal heads that would guide the pedestrians and when it's time to cross, and any sort of wiring that needs to go under the road.
So you're talking about crossing Warnham, not just the panhandle.
Yeah, we're talking mostly about crossing Bowl Avenue on.
Oh, okay, okay. I was looking further up to where the number 3 is. Higher, yeah, okay,
This
okay.
is already
Okay,
there, and
okay.
it's
Yeah.
this crossing here that
Okay.
doesn't really exist. And
Okay.
this would get them over to the shoulder.
Okay.
Yep, yep.
Are we only talking down to number 7, is that? So that'll all the further we're talking?
Yeah, these
At
were the
this point-
highest ranked projects out of the 16. The rest
Okay.
of them were just,
Okay.
they didn't receive as much attention in the survey. And it's kind of convenient that it focuses here because we can prepare just, 3 concepts that combine these 7 projects, which can be a little bit more efficient when it comes to
So
implementing them.
At Bullsburg Pike, by the time you get to Bullsburg Pike, it'll be a 2-lane highway, 3-lane highway.
Well, if you would widen these lanes, starting here, you put a left turn lane in here, left turn lane in here, left turn lane in there, you would practically have a 5-lane road all the way from Earlestown Pike up to Warner Boulevard. It would almost look like that.
See,
But then you would, then you would still have the 4-lane, well, that's the next phase then, from Bullsburg Pike to 45.
Yeah, those projects, fell below in our survey,
So,
and you
but
could go to next.
I thought we were
yeah.
talking about moving it all back, starting at Warner Boulevard, and by the time you hit the raceway between Bullsburg Pike and 45, that would be down to the 3-lane dive we're talking about.
Yeah, we're not talking about, maybe we need to take a step back here. We're not talking about implementing the road diet. It's simply there to illustrate where that study was. This whole thing started coming out of the road diet. We found out that the road diet was a little bit of a love-hate thing right now. And from PennDOT's perspective, they had a lot of reservations because there were some infrastructure projects that needed some attention before we could really even do a road diet project. So we collected all those projects, along with others that the township knew about in this corridor, put together those 16 projects, and now we've whittled them down to 7 that we're going to look at in detail, give you some concepts on dealing with them. The road diet is not really in the picture right now. These are projects that are trying to if you would,
Well,
they're
how are we
almost
gonna-
enabling
how are we gonna-
projects.
How would we incorporate the road diet? Because I thought we talked about moving it back, starting at Warner Boulevard rather than starting at Bullsburg Pike. And have the racetrack from Warner Boulevard to Bullsburg Pike, and then have that simply narrowed down coming into the rest of 322 to 45, or
Yeah.
2 and beyond.
Yeah, that was the idea in the road diet study. That,
Okay.
however, is not being carried forward at this point. It is interesting to note, though, that we were talking about doing a road diet where we would take Bull Avenue down to 3 lanes at Bullsburg Pike and Church Street. We're kind of going the other direction here by adding lanes, by putting a left turn lane in there. So if there,
Well,
if
then
there's any concern about
that
that,
doesn't-
perhaps that kind of
That's,
shakes out.
Yeah, you add the left turn lane, that's great, but you still haven't dealt with the raceway situation in that particular corridor between the Pike and Route 45,
That's true.
Earlytown Road.
That's true.
And that's, I think, we are all really disappointed in the mediocre response about the proposed road diet. I don't know why people are so upset about it in Harris Township, because it doesn't really affect us. It affects through traffic. But the accidents are the potential is there. And so, and it would also be a lot less expensive not having to widen the road to make a turn lane for the Military Museum and Old Bullsburg Road and Bullsburg Pike and Church Street. That's just counterintuitive. That just adding a lane doesn't make sense. That doesn't address anything, and it's going to cost a lot more money. Why not just choke it down? And I like the idea. We hadn't even talked about the road diet going back to the entrance to the Military Museum and Old Bullsburg Road, but that makes a lot of sense. We're going to have a brew pub on the Bull Mansion property right there. And how many people do you think want to stagger across to the hill after going to there? Yeah. So
we may have to make a tunnel through there.
so the crosswalk there is really important, but it's going to be a lot safer if you don't have 4 through lanes. It's totally unnecessary. I bet you right now the amount of traffic that uses that highway, I bet doesn't even meet a warrant for making a 4-lane highway. The only reason it's 4-lane is because it was done up before the 322 bypass existed. So it's just counterintuitive. I don't get it. I'm not interested in adding a lane at Bullsburg Pike and Church Street and adding a lane over there. No, I'm not interested in that. That's not addressing the problem.
Can we define enhance in number 6?
Enhanced pedestrian crossing? Enhanced pedestrian crossing? Good question. We would add other features to the crossing to gain the attention of drivers that pedestrians are crossing there. You have the crosswalk that goes across. Okay, it's pretty standard. It's pretty standard. That's not enhanced. Then you would add lighting, overhead lighting to illuminate it at night, so it could be seen for nighttime crossings. And then what really has been added at a lot of crossings to make them safer are what are called rapid flashing beacons. These are beacons that turn on when a user comes on and presses the button. They flash and notify drivers that there's a pedestrian there, and it increases their yielding rate to the people who want to cross the streets.
They go both directions?
Yeah, they flash both directions and to the sides, usually to indicate to the pedestrians that they are on. Again, they're a user thing. They don't go all the time, only when the user presses it, and they provide enough time for the user to walk across to the other side with the vehicles stop because they're alerted to the presence of the pedestrian that wants to cross. But they've been looked at, tested by Federal Highway Administration, and they do have great increases for yielding to pedestrians, especially in environments that are lower speed, which is why PennDOT was also interested in seeing speed limits lower.
Otherwise, that's a false security kind of effort if you don't put something there to alert the vehicle.
Exactly.
Which is basically the when we get back to the fatality?
Can we do these without adding another lane, be a fifth lane, right?
Yeah.
Can we do this without adding a fifth lane through there?
Yeah, if you want to
From
take
Warren
the,
Boulevard to-
if you want to take the turn lane projects off of the list, now I would say, this one, that one's a pretty needed,
Well, I think
pretty
turning
needed
lanes
there.
are definitely needed. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that Bollesburg Pike needs a turning lane. We just had another accident there, 2 weeks ago, whatever it was. Yeah, that certainly is, and right where we turn into Bull Museum and into the Bull Mansion, that's gonna get problematic right there with pedestrians and turning lanes. So I'd like to turn, but can we do that without adding a fifth lane to that?
well, you have two options. You have two options if you want to get that center lane in there. We need to take away one of the through lanes, which is
Okay.
your road diet,
Yes.
or we need to add a lane in the middle.
So I like the takeaway.
That would be the road diet. One of the things we are scoping in this is a complete new set of turning movement counts. The counts that we were using for the road diet previously were from a little bit of a different era. You know, we've heard about this great,
Yeah.
bit of a reset in how people are driving, the way they're using the roadways, and the volumes might not be coming back, sort of the new normal, I guess. So we were hoping to get that information, and part of that could be to circulate that back into the road diet and see, hey, is a little bit better of a situation now.
I'd like to see traffic counts on Memorial Drive going into Liberty Hill, because that's adding to the left turns. If I'm coming home between 4 and 5 o'clock, it's very rare that I'm not behind 2 or 3 cars that are also turning left up the pike. And I've seen them peel off on Memorial, so we know there's a lot more left turns going on there than there have been in the past since Liberty Hill. And again, just counterintuitive, adding a lane, just choking it down is what has to happen. And
Okay. Does that help control traffic if we would narrow that down? I mean, I don't know, the speed is a little bit of a factor, but that doesn't bother me a whole lot. But it's the volume, and it seems to be people driving cars now, that the cars drive themselves, they don't seem to pay attention as they used to. I don't know if that's, I don't know if any of this is true or not, but if we narrow that road, that certainly would make that a little bit of a safer road. With the business that's going in the corner of Old Bollesburg, you're gonna have people parking at the mansion coming across the street, or parking at the museum coming across the street. It could get problematic with 5 lanes of highway coming down. I think that's a good place to start. Incorporate a road diet with what you said.
So remember that PennDOT really hated the road diet.
Well,
let's tell PennDOT we really
PennDOT-
love the road diet and we hate their response about it.
Right, and I don't disagree with any of what you said, but the problem is that's their road, right? We don't own Bull Avenue.
well, they will listen. They will listen.
Maybe they'll listen when somebody
Yeah.
dies. That's
Well-
what the accident, they go by accident data. It's totally reactive. There's nothing proactive in the way they plan.
PennDOT likes to keep traffic flowing. I understand that. They like to keep that
Well,
traffic.
guess what? It'll flow a lot better if you're not jockeying for position and, it's, again, when we know what's going on, these people from PennDOT aren't driving through that corridor every day. And
I don't disagree with any of that.
I understand.
Can we
Okay.
let Frank weigh in here?
Sure.
Don't go
And just a comment, most meetings you should wait for the chairman to acknowledge you. Anyway, I can't see us, if we're gonna dig this road up and add a lane, and we're gonna go through all that, I think we just go to we just get rid of a lane. Because right now, the only people that must use that road live in Harris Township. Everybody else can go get access where they need to go without going down that road. We have a bypass, a 4-lane highway up there that gets them to 322, 45 you could go around and do that. The only people, and that's who elected me, the people that live there. And that's what I'm looking at. I want that to be safe for here. And I don't think that we need to add a fifth lane. I think we need to take a lane away. And that's the only way we're gonna make that safe. In fact, I'd take 2 lanes away. I'd have it one lane in each direction and a turn
let's make
lane,
it
that's
one
it.
way.
Yeah, whatever. No, I'd have a lane in each way and a turning lane down the middle, because that's what we need, and then we could put a bike path, a walkway. We've talked about bike paths. You know, we are becoming a resident. We're putting a business in there. We're gonna have more businesses going in here eventually. You know, we don't need a speedway. And I will tell you, I know what Nigel, I don't live up there, I live down this way. But I can drive down that road at 35, 40 mile an hour at night and have cars flying by me like I'm standing still. So if they're gonna do a speed study, what they're gonna get, and they're going to the 85 percentile, say, well, 55's okay, because they're doing 70. You know, I don't like the 85 percentile thing anyway. So like I said, I want it less traffic on that road. And the only way we're gonna do that is make it slower going through there, so people don't wanna go through there, unless you live there.
Let me,
Go ahead.
I like the left turn lanes because I think it goes a long way to addressing our racetrack issue. When you come down that road and you encounter the Bullpike Church Street intersection, I think that's where the real crux of it is. You see people jockeying to get in the right lane and to zip around someone else because suddenly they realize people are making turns in their lane. And that is where so to me, the left turn lanes here are high priority for me. Reducing a lane, okay, I obviously from what we're hearing here, that's something that we would like to see under consideration. I'm not as big on that. I am very big on the left turn lanes. I agree with Frank on I never understood the whole speed study because you look at how fast people are going, and then you give them a speed limit to suit what they're doing, not what you want them to do. And so if people are going fast, we're going to raise the speed limit?
I think you're going to see that change here very, very soon. The
I hope so.
regulations on how speeds are set are set to change. It's a pending thing that just has to work its way through the system.
I'll just, Frank and I will go on in agreement that is one of the stupidest things I've ever heard of. Practical question, we're talking about this needs study being done in 2023?
No, it's gonna be done this year.
Okay, we got the money?
Yeah, I talked to Dwight today, and we have the money within our liquid fuels account to pay for the needs study. And the state has agreed that we can use that as long as Rob writes engineering study on our
I think
invoices.
this is pretty comprehensive.
George Harrigan's on the call, and he has his hand up. He's our CCMPO.
Okay,
tech
let
rep.
me
George Harrigan.
let me go on for, well, okay, no, please, George.
Hi, everyone. Hi.
You don't look like George.
I think it's an excellent discussion that we just all listened to and participated in, and I'm very happy to hear of PennDOT's support for the lowering of the speed limit. I think that was a good sidebar to what was behind the road diet kind of concept, is the speeds on Pole Avenue currently are too high. And we should be doing whatever we can to support lowering them. The concept to me, when the conversation went to the left turn lanes, I was happy to see those on the chart. Because I do think they're important. I think they're especially important at Church Street and Bowl, which everyone is expressing. But I still strongly support the road diet, and I still believe that we could accomplish that with a 3-lane road instead of a 5-lane road. And that's what I'd like to see pushed for. And I know there's going to be pushback from PennDOT, but I don't think we really have gotten the heat of those conversations. You know, as a few people have said, you know, they're not the ones that travel the road, use the road, and live by the road. So I think, I don't know. I think there's discussions that can be had and arguments that can be made. And we might still win the road diet conversation. That's where I'm at for the moment. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Can we look at the 3 items here that have been put on our agenda? The first one's review the draft scope of work for the Bowl Avenue needs study and the cost estimate. Can I suggest that we ask that scope of work include consideration of a reduction in lanes or or not increasing the number of lanes? Is that, how do you guys feel about that?
I agree.
One observation in regard to that was, as we were having the discussion, I think some people saw that and thought, oh, we're reducing a lane. And some people saw that and said, oh, we're adding a lane, without being very clear on that. It sounds as if the consensus here is reducing a lane rather than adding a lane is the direction you wanted to see that go.
Yes.
Okay.
Sir, I don't hear much enthusiasm for having an extra lane.
I don't either, and I don't blame you.
Okay.
And I think PennDOT would be amenable to the road diet, not to contradict Amy at all. They're amenable to it. They just see several other things in the corridor, infrastructure things that they want to see resolved first, and then, in fact, I've heard from them. They said, yeah, we expect that road diet to happen at some point. So,
That's encouraging.
and that's coming from.
It's encouraging.
That is
And I
coming
like
from-
the idea that it starts at Warner
We got
Boulevard.
one of those.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
That's Jim. Will you come to the microphone for us? Thank you. Jim Saylor.
That's Tom's level.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
That's easy way.
so he has 30 years to retire then.
I just wanted to ask a clarifying question of Rob, if I could. Does it make sense to design for the lanes with the 5-lane section and incorporate into the designs where it makes sense, size your mast arms and the other treatments so that if 2, 3, 4 years from now, the other infrastructure improvements that PennDOT is looking at are made, so that you can make this set of improvements once and then resize them and at that time reduce from 5 lanes to 3 lanes. Because what I like about this otherwise, and this is not my study, this is an opinion from the floor, it's unsolicited, take it for what it's worth. This set of designs and conceptual plans puts you in a position where you can apply for the Arley program now to do the crossing improvements. And then over the coming year or 2 years, as your funding allows, you can apply for, perhaps the Green Light Go program to do the pedestrian improvements up at Warner Boulevard. And then as maybe you accumulate a little bit more in the way of matching funds, you could go in for something like the multimodal fund program to install the turn lanes. So by doing one study, one set of calculations, one set of designs, you're setting yourself up for 3, 4 years of applications and just a way to slowly implement the types of changes you want to see on the corridor as your resources allow. This is a great first step to kind of give you the resources to move methodically through this process, to put the design changes in place that will help change the context, change driver behavior, and just gradually move you in the direction of the type of use you want to see in the corridor.
You make a reference to a PennDOT wants to see the future. Is this their future, or are we talking a different future?
Referring to only the discussion that was happening here,
Okay.
because these are discussions that I was not party to, but just going from the comments made between Amy and Rob, that in general, they seem amenable to the idea of the road diet, but they see other infrastructure improvements in the area that have to be made to allow that to happen.
What are those others?
I'm not in a position to answer that. I would have to leave that at the feet.
Rob?
Yeah, those have to do primarily with the condition of the signal equipment at the intersections. We're talking about that full intersection replacement. And to your point, to answer the question at the same time, yes, if we move signal poles, they're going to accommodate and assume, for instance, adding left turn arrows, having the span to accommodate the road diet and line up the signals where they need to be. So they're going to be placed in a way that can accommodate. We can place them to accommodate a 5-lane section, but if we don't have to and we're not widening, then we'll place them as they're constructable, because we got to work around the existing equipment, and there's all kinds of things you get into when you got to construct a signal while a signal is
Do
still
they
up and running.
include yellow arrows? Is that something coming down the road? Because Ferguson Township has 1 or 2.
Yeah, so and Rob and I, we had a long discussion about this when we did that signal at Warner Boulevard. And we didn't want to do the flashing yellow because at that time there were only like 4 of them in the entire state of Pennsylvania. And so we were concerned that that intersection was already pretty unsafe and we didn't want to add this other layer where people weren't familiar with it. Now they're more popular and we have the head in there so that we could actually do the yellow if we want to at some point.
Gatesburg and Science Park Road has a flashing yellow arrow.
Yeah, we would recommend those if a left turn phase was needed. Yes.
I like them. I mean,
Good, because I think they're the way of the future, I think.
Can all this be done without adding a lane? We're not
Yes.
talking about, are we still talking about adding a lane or not?
We are talking about accommodating all situations if we decide to replace those signals.
But does that mean you would be widening the road?
We could, but we don't have to.
We don't want to. That's where.
Yeah, or we don't want to.
That's where we're guiding you toward.
Yeah.
All this synonyms you're talking about, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to widen that road. Okay.
Yeah, I'm hearing that loud and clear. And the Arley that's going for that pedestrian crossing, those signals, okay, they're going to be overhead to get the attention of drivers because it's a 4-lane road. It's a wide road right now. They're going to be overhead. Those mast arms are going to be placed so that we don't have to move them in the future. Okay, we're going to keep them out of harm's way.
Which means you're moving them back from
Means they'll
intersections.
probably be back a little bit in case a turn lane does end up coming in there. But again, understanding that's not the desire. But what we don't want to do is put in mast arms, they're right there next to the road, and all of a sudden something comes in or somebody develops and they need a left turn lane, God forbid, and they've got to widen the road and now you got to move your poles again. So we're thinking ahead through those kinds of things, like Jim has suggested. That's just good engineering design.
That crossing at 3, does that require sidewalks along Bowl Avenue? You have a crossing, where does the pedestrian go after they cross there?
Well, there is no sidewalk there,
I know.
there right
That's
now.
somewhere.
So we're not connecting to a sidewalk.
And there's a guardrail there.
There's a wide shoulder. They can walk on the wide shoulder up until you get to the culvert that runs over or under Bowl Avenue. Right about here. And then the road gets narrow and they would have to walk up on the grass.
And there's a water line under that section too, the water authority did some work on last month, so you're dealing with a pretty tight walking area.
Well, I've had people mention to me that coming down 45, that they want to cross there because otherwise you come down 45 and you get nothing.
You mean walking?
Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you got item 1, you got the scope pretty
Yeah,
much?
sounds like we're
Okay.
okay. We just want to make sure that we're considering the lanes.
Okay, how about the Arley grant, not going to cost us anything, needs to be done now?
Yes.
Any problems? Okay, good. Letter to PennDOT for the speed study.
Why not? Not gonna hurt us. It's
Oh, sure it is. They're going to say people are going 60 miles an hour there, so we've got to raise it.
Actually, in the meeting with us, they said because of they were watching the traffic and they said because there's so many people crossing, there has been a fatal accident out there. They really think they can lower that, at least that stretch right there by the military
Good.
museum.
Good, so we're good with that.
Okay.
I'll add, you had mentioned a count of pedestrians going across in that intersection between the Bull Mansion and the military museum. It's probably a low count compared to what we would have if we had a safe crossing.
Yeah, build it and they will come, right?
Well, right now it's scary.
We were actually
Once
surprised.
there's some development there, it's gonna increase, it have to.
We were surprised when we had our field view. I believe we saw a number of different people cross the road while we were standing there. It's one of those where I don't think we recognized how that area was being used and how much activity there was. You look at how much activity there is walking on the PA Military Museum, and you have a park right back there. That's a logical connection. This lays out, and our needs memo is going to highlight all of this and show how this network makes sense to build something.
And
like
you
this.
have an encouraged path system on the museum property, a chip trail path system that people walk on. In fact, they park at the military museum across the street and
Yeah,
walk.
it's a magnet for
Yeah.
folks.
40 years ago, we told our kids, don't cross at this gas station. Don't go up there and cross over. That's been at least 30 years we've been saying that to our kids. Don't cross up there, cross at the gas station. Yeah.
Okay, are we ready to move on?
Yep.
Okay, good, thank you.
Thank you.
Parking lot behind the municipal building.
Jerry's here. Jerry, come join us at the table.
We're not supposed to do that yet?
I'll let you run the show because they're your plans.
Go ahead.
You have before you a couple sketch plans, I believe.
Well,
And I also believe that for this calendar year, you had budgeted $20,000 for parking lot improvements.
Yeah, because we have no idea how much it's going to cost.
Essentially, what I tried to break this into, many thanks to Mr. Franson for his help on this, and Mr. Shea for his ideas and input. If you go to the final page, this is what your ultimate layout would look like. You don't have enough aisle width to get head-in parking in all three aisles. Angled parking would help you reduce that width. This is, to the best of our knowledge, meeting your ordinance for parking lots. This satisfies most of those regulations. It has not been submitted to Todd yet. Todd would have that opportunity for future review. But at this point, this would be what your full build-out would look like. Given the current condition of your parking lot, this full build-out would be more than $20,000. Working backwards, Phase 2A, Todd had the idea of taking your overhead electric and your pole that sits in the middle of your parking lot. It's next to the fuel containment system now, so it's not a strike hazard at this point because there's a fuel containment system next to it that prevents cars from running into it and they see it. Once that fuel containment system is removed, because it's no longer necessary, you're going to have a floating pole that would be right on the edge of a parking stall. If we wanted to move overhead electric to underground, that's not going to happen in the next 4 or 6 weeks. That's going to be a longer term project. So the idea here was to look at a contractor who does asphalt work, concrete work, get them to commit to a project this year yet in doing where the shed used to be. Get that milled out, get that cleaned up, get that paved in, get the curbing in, possibly do the landscaping this year. I left open the possibility if there was an Eagle Scout or somebody that wanted to do some type of fencing or community work, that would be available. But this was sketch plan, for lack of a better term, to kind of get us moving in a direction, something that I can hopefully get a blessing on and then hand to a contractor and get a price for this year and then get a sense for what your long-term outlook may be.
The question, the center pile, they would be better angled, that's better the way they are? The center aisle for cars, you have to come in and, would it be better to angle those? I don't know what that would mean, but it seems to me, when you come in, you have to make a real sharp turn to park. When you come in at an angle, I don't know whether that's, engineering-wise, that's possible or not, but it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 spots.
Well, occasionally it's 24 feet.
You have 24 feet to get in there. In my opinion, it can go either way.
I'm just asking.
Coming from Duffy's, you
Well, I'm just saying, it seems to me that the flow would be easier if they could come in, I don't know that.
Yeah,
Angle parking versus angle
They
parking.
give you an opportunity to pull head in and head out. The other unanswered question with that center aisle, when you leave through this door, would you want ADA parking out here somewhere to put in a sidewalk and make this ADA accessible? As you add all these stalls in, none of these have been earmarked as ADA stalls. We looked at possibly use the front sidewalk ramp is not up to current standards, so would we want to improve that to make the building more ADA accessible? Starting from a goal of what can we finish this year and what do we have budgeted? We have more ideas than we have budget for 2022.
Everybody does.
So, that's where this started from, and it would be I guess my proposal at this point, to use that budgeted money and to start with at least the asphalt concrete work.
Let me propose something here. We're always arguing about pervious and impervious surfaces.
What's that about?
Can we put in a pervious surface in there for parking on?
Pervious surfaces come with a lot of maintenance, and you already have a very compacted parking lot. So getting water to move vertically from top to bottom and through what's already very compacted out there is going to be challenging at best. If a developer asked me whether that was pervious or impervious, I would tell them that it's impervious, even where the gravel is by your...
Well, that's our official answer when everybody says something to us.
I'm aware.
Packed stones are impervious, but there are methods. I don't know if it's more expensive or less expensive than paving over. What's that? Whatever that song goes.
You'd essentially be digging deeper, chewing more up to get water to be able to move from top to bottom, and it would be more expensive than standard asphalt paving. It does come with maintenance as well. If you do...
Problem now with water running toward the entry door and around the building, do we need to look at that sheet flow from where the tanks are going that way?
There is a depression in your driveway now that's carrying that. It
Goes around the building.
flows around the building. There's a flow line. I didn't label it as flow line, but there's a flow line shown on your drawings. That's the lighter line that kind of hooks around the building. And if you go out here and look, you'll see your pavement in that flow line is actually in pretty poor shape because that's where the ice would accumulate and the salt would accumulate.
Yeah.
So
It's been,
Yeah,
when you used to wash the trucks off with the salt, all the salt water would end up putting.
we don't wash trucks anymore because our MS4 permit says that we don't
They
do
do
it.
it
Have
up
an
there.
oil and grease separator and a separate wash bay now.
Let me raise 4 points. Just,
Okay.
the trees and the planting. I like the fact that on Phase 1C scope, the tree remains, the one that's there, correct?
Mhm.
And you have some green planting along that border?
Correct. Where we put
Yeah.
in the stalls, imagine you're pulling in there with your headlights on. You're going to be shining them into...
How much room do we have there before we get to our property line? Are those 2 sheds the property line?
Basically, yes.
Makes it tough, okay.
Can we use common sense when
Yes.
How do we handle the Harris Township lighting ordinance with respect to light not leaving the premises?
We could do some.
Todd leave the premise.
Todd could talk
Put a
about
wall
that.
up.
It's an excellent question. As
Because
of,
we have to abide by it as
Right.
well as anybody else.
as of right now, do you have a light out there?
No,
No.
The only
We
light
had
we had
one
was
on the
on,
pole
we had
shed.
one on the pole building.
and we have
Okay.
one on the side of
It's
the building.
gone and it's dark out there.
Right.
Yeah, we definitely need light out there.
Yeah.
But-
Tell you something else we'll better think on putting out there is some kind of a security camera.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if we're gonna have a municipal parking lot, somebody's gonna have something come up and we should have security camera.
Didn't Milheim do decorative streetlights in their surface parking lot?
We can, that's solvable, that's solvable.
Last point, and I think we're thinking down the road a little bit. We need to, if we're gonna start paving, think about where we're gonna put an electric charging station. We don't wanna pave a parking lot and 2 years dig it up and put a station in somewhere in this side. So
I-
give some thought to where that would go.
Yep.
Why would we put a charging station?
For Amy's golf cart.
For somebody else to charge your car?
We could, there's
I know what you're saying.
very likely we could have an electric vehicle.
it's worth considering and worth designing in there to have conduit in place.
Yeah, we
The
don't
other,
want-
the other,
You can do parking lot.
the other inconvenience that people think about is, would you want a pay station so that people aren't parked there 24/7, 365, something that forces turnover? And I don't want to set off any alarms or anything else. Future consideration.
Let the business charging cars with the business people.
So,
Well, I've been thinking about, you look down Main Street, if we depended on a business to put a charging station in, where would it go? Where would they put one?
Does it have to be on their property?
Tell me where we go. I walked down the Memorial Day and I thought, gee, anywhere in the square, there's no space. Anywhere in Duffy's parking lot, there's no space.
right.
Then you run Main Street, east and west, you're talking about on-street parking, no place for a charging station. This parking lot's the only one we have.
Right.
Nigel, care to get a word in edgewise?
I like the idea of getting conduit in to be able to do that, so you don't have to dig it up again. But as far as, I mean, I don't know. I would think it would be a charging station just for a municipal vehicle that might be parked here and not a charging station for public, because that should be done commercially.
All right. I wasn't directly involved in the College Township charging station, but there the charging station went in with two plugs.
Two
and
plugs, yeah.
To get the grant, one's available for the public and the other one's forever plugged into the College Township vehicle. So,
And then they just connected to one.
right.
And that's what the Waste Authority put in, a double plug.
I mean, if it's available for the public, couldn't it be metered, in charge? Wouldn't you do that?
Charge it off credit card.
I believe that it will all come back to who gives you the money to put it in. If they give you the money to install it, they might have rules that go with it, so.
The borough, interestingly, you use their charging station and you get free parking.
Yeah.
You pay for the electricity with free parking.
The Center Region Codes is also investigating
Yeah.
electrical vehicles and that type of thing. I have nothing earmarked in this to install that charger right now. It's a valid point to put that conduit in.
Well, you can put it anywhere along it. It's not that hard to put in. I would agree with them. We wouldn't want to dig up the parking lot, but any along the building service, it could easily be accommodated.
That could be something that you think about when you think about moving the electric to underground. We do have public comment from Bruce's wife. Would you like me to read the chat message?
Sure.
Will you provide?
Come on, Bruce, say no. I want to hear you say no, Bruce.
Her question is, will you provide more detail on the amount of additional maintenance and its costs, as well as the amount of additional upfront cost for a pervious surface?
There you go. Thank you, Jenny.
Yeah, we can definitely do that.
Yeah, we can look into it. Ferguson Township has installed pervious paving. I know the Geisinger facility that was to be built on the corner of Atherton and Scenery was going to do pervious paving, and when told that they would have to abide by all the DEP maintenance for vacuuming and for keeping the pores free of grit and anti-skid, that type of stuff, they said no. They said it was too cumbersome to put on their staff to do the maintenance
Who is
that was
this now?
required. The Geisinger facility that was going to go in, it's still planned.
What municipality?
College.
Oh, college.
Well, never hurts to have more
The
information.
old Center County Visitor Bureau building on the corner of Porter and
Right.
had that. They took it out.
Frank,
Yep.
do you have anything else?
I'll just have one word on the whole thing. Edsel. Let's go, move on.
You say Edsel, let's go.
Edsel.
So my understanding is that our ambition would be to get all of phase one done this year.
Yes.
Okay. I think that having power across to the parking area we're going to develop now just makes sense. If for nothing else, then putting in some lighting there.
We need lighting.
Certainly, so that should definitely be part of what our action plan is at least get power across there. What we do with it at that point, we have flexibility, but like people have said, we don't want to tear it up again.
Yep.
I'm interested in seeing us pursue electric vehicle charging. Certainly, I think the township may want to get into this in the future, have a township vehicle that's electric. And I'm interested to know that, would like to know more about the kind of grants we could get to do that.
Charging station money is out there.
Yeah, okay, anybody else on this? We done?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Our MS4 update, not going anywhere.
It's Jerry.
Discussion item.
Once a year, you are obligated under your permit to listen to me tell you about your MS4 stormwater permit. This is your lucky day.
He's so thrilled.
Your permit is a 5-year permit. You are still in the early third of it. You had a couple projects, they're listed here. None of those are full speed ahead. They're all budgeted, they're all in the works. None of them are actively being installed outside of the Hauserville project that has been installed. In order to get credit for restoring a stream, you have to also enter into a maintenance agreement to maintain what's been installed. In that case, everything was installed by Fish and Wildlife Service and Trout Unlimited at no cost to the townships. And then the long-term maintenance plan, College Township owns one side, and the other side has been owned privately. Clearwater is purchasing that. So once Clearwater finishes that purchase, they've indicated that they'll sign the agreements to have a partnership. At this point, probably to kick in a few bucks to spray for invasives and help that riparian buffer thrive. Your military museum project, that stream bank restoration, again, talking to Trout Unlimited, talking to Fish and Wildlife Service, trying to talk to anybody that's willing to help with those projects to reduce your costs. But that project is in its infancy. It's still not full speed ahead. And then the 2023 Willowbrook Stormwater Basin project, that would be to take the outfall, the orifice in the outfall, raise it up a couple inches, make it a little bit smaller so that the water doesn't all rush out of the basin, and try to get more water to infiltrate down. That's the simple gist of the project. There'd be some surveying involved, there'd be some soil testing involved, but that would be the project per your pollutant reduction plan.
Where is that basin? Is that by the Pheasant Park section, or is it the other small park section?
The downstream section. So, not on the golf course upstream section. On the,
Tot lot.
Okay. Yeah, there's a smaller part
Okay.
there. Okay.
So DEP's happy with us,
so far, DEP's happy with you.
and we're on track.
You're on track. Your ordinance update will be coming down the pike here. I'm sure Mark will be involved with all the center region municipalities making the necessary updates. DEP has a list of things they'd like to see in your ordinance. They're mandated by this permit, so it'll be a center region wide effort to make that update.
Okay, can we move on?
Thank
All
you.
right, thanks. We are up to the request to use the Bollesburg Fire Police.
Moved approved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Okay. Managers report.
It's late, so I will just say that if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Number 2 is the selection issue of which day. And
Yes, if you have a preference on
13's
that.
fine with me.
I said earlier about adding something here. When we were at PML, there was one session they had on Zoom meetings and whether they're legal, which according to PML and the attorneys, they are not. As of December 31st this year, we should be all meeting in person. We are fine, we do, but COG should not be meeting by Zoom. They should be meeting in person. Now, in Bruce's case, that's fine. If you are out of town or you have to, you're sick or something like that, that's fine. But we are back to meeting in person according to what the attorneys and everybody for PML said.
Asked Amy for that.
So I actually, while we were at PML, I texted Mr. Norenberg and said, hey, I've gotten some good information on the remote meeting stuff. And I followed up with an email with everything we heard at our session. The crux of the issue, and what I said to Eric was, I said, this is what you need to address. In the municipal codes, it doesn't address uniformly what a quorum is. So the second class township code doesn't say that you have to be physically present to have a quorum. So when the pandemic started, everyone was like, well, we're covered because we're a second class township. You don't physically, it doesn't say you have to be physically present. the first class, I think the first class township code and the borough code say you have to have a physical quorum present. So Eric said, I told Eric, I said, because you're kind of a hodgepodge, there's no code for a council of governments, and you fall under the municipal code for each of your governing bodies, right? And we have second class townships, and we have a borough, and we have home rule municipalities. So he said that the solicitor told him that as long as it's spelled out in their articles of agreement that what a quorum is and what constitutes a quorum, then they have to follow that. So I said to him, no, I said, because I believe Ferguson Township just recently went back in person. I think they were the last ones, that they were still mostly not in person, and their citizens were starting to get upset about that. So I said, I don't want to put the cog in a position where I haven't noticed, I mean, again, I'm doing these meetings remotely, the general forum, but I haven't noticed that there's a physical quorum
We're the
present.
only ones, we're the only ones there.
Well, I was at the facilities committee meeting this month, which I'll report on. I was the only one in person.
Did you
The only one.
I was the only
get
one.
some written materials from that presentation?
I actually gave him, I took notes, but I gave him all the bills that they're looking at in the state right now, and did give him all that information.
Okay, would you provide me with some of that prior
Yes.
to the executive committee
Yep.
meeting? Okay. Anything else from the manager's report? Good. I need a motion to
Well, what
approve.
about Denny's
We're gonna get there, we're getting there.
Okay.
Anything else on, I need a motion to approve the vouchers.
Second.
I have a question. What is flex claims?
Oh, that's our flex spending account.
What?
We have flexible spending account for our employees, so they pay in, it comes out pre-tax dollars, and then we get billed for those accounts, or those claims.
They pay into what?
They get money taken out of their
They get
check. that
money
goes
taken
into
out of
their
their-
flex account.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then that's distribution out of their flex account.
$10.
Yeah.
Yeah, co-payments.
Probably co-pay.
Okay. Let's see, let's work our way through this. I'll start off. Executive committee had a very minimal agenda, hence we canceled the general forum meeting for the last month. Parks and Capital Committee met. There were no action items on the agenda. We did look at the capital improvement program, which we've all seen multiple times. Parks Governance Committee met. Parks Governance Committee, the current topic is the purpose and mission of the authority. We had a good discussion, but we only managed to come to one conclusion. And that was one of the purposes of the authority is to raise money. It was recommended by Bill Keogh, who is a sharp man, that each of the members submit a list of their ideas for what the authority should, purpose and mission should be, and that the chair compile those, see what items there's consensus on, and we can move through and start ticking those boxes off and stop spinning our wheels. I'll remind you all that if changing the bylaws of the authority would require unanimous approval. And if there isn't unanimous approval, the authority will continue to exist under the current bylaws for about another 40 years. Okay?
How long has it been in place? How old is it?
Well, the current one's about 10 years old. It's a 50-year.
So the authority's been around
No, the authority's bylaws were updated about 10 years ago.
back in the days of Bob Air, which was many years ago.
So, I mean, there were previous bylaws, but it was updated. Some of the discussion that's going to go on as far as what my suggestion is, comes around the municipal and regional funded things. My own opinion is that, and I'm glad to hear any thought, your advice, but that anything that is regionally funded, be it capital, be it regional operations like the pools or the regional parks, or be it a regional facility, for example, if we had decided to do the Action Sports Park in a municipal park, but with using regional funds, that should all come under the oversight of the park authority. And next up, once we work our way through this, will be what the overall governance structure should be. And so that'll include the other COG committees that currently have some oversight or some purview over park operations. My own personal opinion, again, I'd be happy to hear from you. We don't have to do it tonight, but I kind of think that Parks Capital Committee has outlived its usefulness. Facilities Committee is already doing a lot of stuff for us, for the park agency. And the Finance Committee could take over the capital financing. Wouldn't be a great burden. We haven't done any capital financing. The last thing we did was refinance the project. I mean, so it's something that comes up about once every blue moon. Lastly, the authority met, looked at the present plans. Two things that occurred that are kind of important is one is our architectural firm charged us, sent us a request that we approve a change order in the budget for them. They went ahead and did about $10,000–12,000 worth of work without clearing it with the park agency or the authority ahead of time. And they are receiving a strongly worded letter. Finally, you'll like this one, Hess Fields. We initiated discussion on Hess Fields and what its master plan should look like. The discussion originated around whether there should be 3 fields or 4 fields in the final Hess Field build out. And so it would be 3 fields of associated amenities or 4 fields of associated amenities. They asked me what Harris Township felt. I spoke for you guys when I all said, we don't care right now about 3 fields or 4 fields. We care about the amenities.
There you go.
We want a real bathroom. We want decent parking, and then we can bite off that piece and chew it now, and then take care of the 3 or 4 field issue down the road.
Binder about that thick on the history of Field, so a lot of background information
I have all the
there.
emails.
Yeah.
Okay, Frank, MPO.
NPO did not meet. We meet in 2 weeks. I think it's 2 Tuesdays from now.
Okay.
You want me to keep going?
Yep.
Facilities, we met the beginning of the month. 2 major items in there. The one is the CIP executive summary. You're going to start seeing something in there from the Facilities Committee that's going to go to the Finance Committee. The only thing that I commented on is our goal was to have, here's how much we need to fund depreciation every year and regular maintenance. Here's what we need. Well, what we got was, you got that in there, but then they also we're putting this building up. So the number got really big. I said, well, that doesn't really tell what that is. So I made that comment. They're going to try to spread that out and split it out so it looks better and it makes more sense. And the other thing is we moved the solar power purchase agreement RFP on. The only comment I had on that, I'm just not comfortable with long-term commitment on it because, you make a 25-year commitment and the next thing you know, somebody comes out with something cheaper, greener, more efficient, more reliable, and now you're stuck for 25 years. So that was the only part of it. I'm pretty sure from what they said, we will get multiple options. The Pell study, right now, I think George sent something from the technical committee that we're now looking at late August, early September for the final options or alternatives. So that's about all that's going there. Public safety, we meet tomorrow morning, so I don't have anything on that.
Okay. Human Resources.
Okay, we met June 1st. We approved a few job descriptions, a revised job description for SCLO Library Communications Coordinator, formerly Communications Manager. We approved a updated job description for a Senior Transportation Planner in the Planning Office and a updated job description for the Center Region Fire Director. After that, we had quite a long discussion about how we wanted to proceed with our recommendation from HR regarding the CPIU being up over, it's probably around 7%. It could have been, well, let's see, it could be as up as high as 8.3, but trending, they figure it's going to be about 7%. And in the COG pay plan, if the CPI exceeds 5% in order to give wage increases more than 5%. It would need general forum approval. And HR is being pretty conservative and saying, we recommend you just stick to the 5%. There's still a possibility of 1.5% merit attached to that.
They're talking this next budget cycle.
Yeah,
is that what
for
you're
the
talking?
budget cycle.
Which starts in October, November.
Well, yeah,
Okay.
this year's budget cycle, we get to throw our 2 cents in early.
Sounds like 2
On
cents
what
is
we
all you're
think.
throwing in.
Sounds like you
Yeah,
had pretty
no.
cheap 2 cents to me.
Right, but, so, yeah, the committee, after quite some discussion, we all agreed that, we don't think the COG should go for more than 5%, because basically, that's just gonna drive inflation, all sorts of reasons. But anyway, and, that was it. So,
Okay, Danny, why don't you do your 2 committees, and they're out 45.
Okay, the Land Use Committee had a presentation by Jim May and Jim Saylor, talked about the update of the comprehensive plan, and Jim's presentation was on the new 10-year MPO, and had a good discussion about that. Solar power purchasing, we went over detail by detail of the RFP, and just a major revision on it. And I would think probably in August, we should be ready to do a distribution of that RFP. And expecting some good competitive bids on it. That's it, Bruce.
Okay, Route 45? Route 45.
Okay. Well, I had sent the email out that asked to be relieved of the duties on that, and Amy was going to follow up with the Ferguson Township people regarding a business person serving on it, and what other background do you have?
Right, I followed up with Jenna Wargo, who's the planner at Ferguson Township, and I said we were thinking about appointing a business person. Are there regulations in terms of where the person is? Do they have to be on 45 or not? And she wrote back initially and said they had to be within 5 miles of Route 45. Then she wrote back and said, oh, I was just corrected, and said it's fine, they can be wherever in your municipality as long as they understand they're representing Harris Township. So that sort of opens the door to anybody.
Everybody lives within 5 miles of 40.
Yeah, right. I like the idea of a business person. I think that's a great idea because this benefits them.
And I set out some suggestions of who that could be. So conceptually looked from the east side, coming through the township and going west.
My recommendation was Tracy Moriarty from Duffy's. Duffy's is a signature business in our community. Tracy wants to be involved. I think it would be a good opportunity, and
Give her something to do every when is it then?
Huh?
Monday at 3 or what time?
yeah, they're closed.
Monday at 3.
prepared for 3 o'clock every Monday, and I couldn't do that.
And Duffy's is closed on Monday. I don't know if that's a factor.
No,
but-
Tuesday
but
and
I
Wednesday.
can reach out to her and ask her if she's interested.
Anybody, you like that idea?
Yeah.
And have the Ferguson Township lady send some advance notice to Tracy, so she gets an idea what this project looks like.
Yeah. Okay,
Thank you.
Mr. Graham.
Finance Committee did not, it's been canceled. We should have canceled it last month, but we had it, but there was nothing this month. Climate action, I'd like to spend a few minutes on that. The first thing we did was suspend, I'll get the exact wording on this, rescinded the motion, I find it here, I had it, of course I was ready to give this report. Okay. Next page. The Climate Action Committee. The Climate Action Sustainable Committee rescinds the motion made April 11th, 2022, as a general forum for its endorsement of Resolution 2223, calling on the United States Congress to enact the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act. So we have rescinded our request for general forum to do that. They're leaving up to each municipality. Half Moon College and us have not acted on it, so that we've rescinded that motion. The little background on that, and I was against it, but from now on, I think we have to be careful. Everybody has an agenda, wants to come to the COG and have the COG endorsement. Everybody has an agenda for everything, needs, or that we had to be careful because we need to be a little selective, because if we approve it, read it, so we don't want to get to the point where we just pass anything that comes through. So we have to be careful on that, and that was a good discussion on
I
that
agree
one.
with that. Our community is not the same as all the communities are different.
Yeah.
That was part of the discussion with respect to external communication we went through a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
With respect to, public services got a lot of those. And we became sort of uncomfortable with just sort of blanket approval, so it's
Well,
rearing its head again.
Everybody has an agenda, likes to use this as a pulpit, but we
Yeah.
have to be careful on it.
And COG is not a city.
Okay. We had the program plan, which you will see, we'll see that. We talked about recycling and refuse plan, which is up for bid, I think, soon. I don't know how that got moved into this committee, but it did. Now, which is interesting, we are in, you've heard of the $1 million climate action grant that was being awarded.
Oh, yeah.
And we are, it's going to be awarded to 3 members. We have been down out of 8. There's been 8 finalists, and we are one of those 8. And July 31st, they will announce the 3 winners of that. And it's some pretty good competition. Georges County, Maryland, Duluth, Minnesota, Watsonville, California, Rochester, New York, Menlo Park, California, Sierra Nevada, and State College, Pennsylvania, and Gunnison, Colorado. So those are 8. Now, it's $1 million, and our use is to split it to help the housing plan at $500,000, and these other $500,000 to an award or a loan to start. So we'll see where we're at on that one. And that's it.
Okay, Heritage Museum?
Oh, Heritage Museum, they're open up. We're having a meeting Thursday night, sort of a